Picture this: a dark, gritty city, a hero born from tragedy, a relentless pursuit of justice. Sounds like a surefire hit, right? Well, not always. Today, we're diving deep into the surprisingly rocky start of one of the most iconic heroes ever created. You might think their debut was an instant sensation, but the truth is, publishers initially weren't impressed at all. So, why did this legendary character, a figure who would later define a genre and generate billions, nearly get rejected? Let's uncover the story. The year was 1939. The comic book world was buzzing, thanks to the explosive success of Superman a year earlier. Publishers were scrambling to find the next big thing, the next hero who could capture the public's imagination. Into this frenzy stepped a young artist named Bob Kane and a writer named Bill Finger. They had an idea, a stark contrast to the bright, godlike alien from Krypton. Their creation was a mortal man, driven by vengeance and honed into the perfect human weapon. He wasn't powered by the sun, he was fueled by loss. This was Batman, but the version they first pitched wasn't quite the Dark Knight we know and love today. The initial design featured a red suit, a small domino mask, and large, stiff bat-like wings. He looked more like a pulp adventure character than a creature of the night. When Kane showed his initial sketches to Bill Finger, Finger's feedback was crucial. He suggested changing the color scheme to the now iconic gray and black, replacing the domino mask with a cowl that hid his identity, and swapping the stiff wings for a flowing scalloped cape to create a more dramatic bat-like silhouette. He even suggested giving him gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints. It was Finger who fleshed out the origin story, the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents in Crime Alley, which became the core of the character's motivation. Even with these massive improvements, when Kane pitched the character to his editors at National Comics, later known as DC, the reaction was lukewarm. They already had Superman, the ultimate hero. Why did they need this dark, brooding, and frankly kind of scary character? Superman represented hope, the American dream, a bright and optimistic future. Batman, on the other hand, represented the dark underbelly of society. He was a creature of vengeance, operating outside the law in the shadows. This was a radical departure. Publishers were concerned that a character so grim would appeal to the younger audience that made up the bulk of comic book readers. Remember, at this time, comics were largely seen as disposable entertainment for kids. A hero who was just a regular, albeit very wealthy and skilled human being. It seemed less fantastical, less exciting than a man who could fly and bend steel with his bare hands. The editors worried Batman was too dark, too violent, and too psychologically complex. They questioned whether readers would connect with a hero who didn't have superpowers, and was driven by such a dark past. One of the biggest hurdles was the tone. The first Batman stories in Detective Comics were heavily influenced by pulp magazines and noir films. They featured grim detective work, shadowy alleys, and a protagonist who didn't hesitate to use fear and intimidation. In his earliest appearances, Batman was even shown using a gun and had no qualms about killing criminals. A far cry from the strict no-kill rule that would later become his defining moral code. This grittiness was a gamble. Would parents approve of their children reading about such a violent vigilante? It was a legitimate concern for a publisher trying to build a family-friendly brand. So, what changed their minds? What made them take a chance on this Batman? A few factors were at play. Firstly, the success of other pulp-inspired characters like the Shadow, who was already popular in magazines and on the radio, showed there was an audience for dark, mysterious Avengers. The editors, particularly Vince Sullivan, saw the potential. They recognized that while Batman was different from Superman, that very difference could be his greatest strength. He wouldn't be competing with Superman, he'd be offering an alternative. He was the perfect counterpoint. Secondly, the creative team of Kane and Finger was persistent and passionate. They truly believed in their creation. They delivered a compelling package, a striking visual design, a powerful backstory, and a unique place in the emerging superhero landscape. The name Batman itself was catchy and mysterious. The concept of a detective who was also a costumed hero was a brilliant fusion of two popular genres. So, the editors decided to test the waters. They didn't give Batman his own title right away. Instead, he debuted in Detective Comics number 27, an anthology series. This was a low-risk way to see how the public would react. And the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Readers were fascinated by this new, dark hero. He was mysterious, he was human, and he was cool. He was the night, while Superman was the day. The contrast worked beautifully. The initial sales figures for Detective Comics number 27 were so strong that any doubts the publishers had quickly vanished. Batman wasn't just a hit. He was a phenomenon. He tapped into a different part of the reader's psyche. While kids might have fantasized about being an all-powerful alien like Superman, they could relate on a more grounded level to Bruce Wayne. His powers came from training, intellect, and determination, qualities anyone could aspire to. His tragic origin made him relatable and gave his mission a powerful emotional weight. Within a year, Batman's popularity had skyrocketed to the point where he was given his own self-titled comic book, Batman #1. In the spring of 1940, this issue was monumental. Not just for giving Batman his own series, but for introducing two of his most enduring and iconic adversaries, the Joker and Catwoman. The creation of such compelling villains further solidified Batman's place in pop culture. It proved the world of Gotham City was rich with storytelling potential. Looking back, it's fascinating to think that the very elements that made publishers nervous, Batman's darkness, his lack of superpowers, his complex psychology, are precisely what have given him such incredible longevity. While other heroes of the Golden Age have faded into obscurity, Batman has remained relevant for over 80 years, constantly being reinvented for new generations. He can be a campy crime fighter, a grim noir detective, or a blockbuster action hero. His core concept is so strong that it can withstand almost any interpretation. The initial hesitation from publishers serves as a powerful lesson. Sometimes, the greatest successes come from taking risks and challenging conventions. The comic book world in 1939 wanted another Superman, but what it needed was a Batman. They needed a hero to show that you don't need superpowers to make a difference, and that even from the darkest of tragedies, a symbol of hope and justice can rise. It's a testament to the creator's vision that they pushed through the initial doubt. They knew they had something special, a character who wasn't just another hero, but a modern myth in the making. So the next time you see the bat signal light up the sky in a movie or comic, remember its humble beginnings. Remember the publishers who almost said no, and the creators who fought for their dark, human, and utterly brilliant idea. It's a story of how a character who failed to impress at first went on to become one of the most beloved and enduring heroes in history. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into comic book history. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. Let me know in the comments which hero's origin story you'd like to see me cover next. Until then, take care.